Under the chandeliers of a billionaire's gala, laughter sparkled louder than the music. But it was not joy. It was mockery. A powerful black CEO, dressed in quiet elegance, became the target of cruelty from a woman who believed arrogance was the same as power. The room joined in, whispers turning to humiliation. Cameras caught the spectacle, but what they missed was the storm building in silence. Because behind the calm smile was a truth that would shatter the night and erase billions in a single decision. What happens when the one you try to humiliate is the one holding your future? Amara Johnson was no stranger to rooms of power. As the CEO of Orion Global, she had built an empire with quiet precision, transforming setbacks into stepping stones. Yet, she never carried an entourage, never craved the flash of cameras. Her strength was in her silence, her presence enough to command respect from those who truly knew who she was. That evening, she arrived at a billionaire's gala dressed in a gown the color of burning dusk, elegant, understated, deliberate. She walked in alone, calm and composed, a woman who had nothing to prove. But in a world obsessed with spectacle, her refusal to chase attention would soon be mistaken for weakness. And in that mistake, a storm was already waiting to break. The gala was meant to be a celebration of wealth, power, and influence. Sequins shimmered under golden chandeliers, champagne flowed like water, and every guest carried themselves as if the world belonged to them. But in a corner of the ballroom sat Amara Johnson, calm and composed in her satin gown, her silence standing out in a sea of loud performance. To most, she was invisible until Victoria Hale decided to make her a target. With a smile sharpened like glass, Victoria's voice cut through the music. "You really wore that to a billionaire's gala?" The crowd reacted instantly. Whispers spread like wildfire, and laughter followed. Some smirked into their glasses, others leaned in with cruel curiosity. The remarks grew bolder, insinuations that Amara did not belong, that she was staff, that she had somehow slipped in unnoticed. And yet, Amara remained still. She did not defend herself, did not match cruelty with words. Her silence was deliberate, but to Victoria, it looked like weakness. Mockery turned into spectacle. Victoria raised her glass, tossing insults loud enough for the room to hear. "Ballroom couture, darling. Maybe you should try it someday." The laughter swelled, sharper this time. Guests who had once respected Amara in boardrooms now chose the comfort of conformity, letting their silence join in the cruelty. It was not just about a dress, it was about centuries of judgment. A black woman in a space that had always doubted her presence was once again being told she did not belong. The moment escalated further when Victoria accidentally spilled her wine, a ribbon of scarlet staining Amara's gown. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some laughed nervously. Others turned away, unwilling to intervene. But Amara did not flinch. She placed her napkin carefully over the stain, her calmness unnerving those who watched closely. This was not submission. It was calculation. Then came the cruelest strike. Victoria waved toward security, her voice ringing out, "Escort this woman out. She's clearly not supposed to be here." The crowd shifted, phones discreetly raised to record. The humiliation was no longer hidden. It was on full display. Security moved closer, the tension thick enough to silence even the music. Victoria smirked, believing her performance complete. But what no one realized was that Amara was not powerless. She had been underestimated before, and each time she had turned judgment into fuel. Now, as the room leaned in, waiting for her collapse, she reached calmly for her clutch. The silence deepened, anticipation building. Was this the moment she would finally break, or the moment the entire night would turn upside down? The ballroom fell silent as security reached Amara's table. Every camera, every whisper, every smirk pointed toward her, as though she were already guilty of simply existing in that space. Victoria stood tall, her crimson sequins blazing, her voice dripping with triumph. "Time to leave. You don't belong here." The crowd leaned in, expecting to witness humiliation sealed in real time. But Amara did not rise in shame. Instead, she reached into her clutch with calm precision, her movements slow, deliberate, commanding. A single phone emerged, its screen glowing against the dimmed chandeliers. She pressed one button, lifted it to her ear, and spoke words that sliced through the air like thunder breaking the night. Initiate Protocol 7. Confusion flickered across the guards' faces. Victoria laughed, dismissive, believing it was desperation, a woman calling for help that would never come. Yet, moments later, a voice on the line responded with absolute clarity. "Yes, Miss Johnson. The Hale contract is terminated. 4.9 billion withdrawn, effective immediately." The words rippled through the room. Murmurs turned into gasps, gasps into shouts. Faces shifted from amusement to horror as the truth sank in. The woman mocked, humiliated, and nearly dragged out by security was the one holding the pen over Victoria's empire. Amara rose slowly, the wine stain on her gown no longer humiliation, but a crown of resilience. The silence was unbearable now, not for Amara, but for Victoria. Her smirk faltered, her hands trembled, her empire collapsing in the time it took Amara to make one phone call. And in that moment, the room realized the truth. Power had never been in the sequins, the spotlight, or the arrogance. It had always been in the silence, waiting. And now that silence had spoken, the room that once mocked her now stood frozen, haunted by the truth. Victoria's empire had crumbled not with fire, but with silence, a silence that revealed who truly held the power. Phones captured every second, and by the next morning headlines would scream of a $4.9 billion deal erased in one night. But for Amara, this wasn't about money. It was about dignity. She did not gloat, she did not shout. She simply placed her napkin over the wine stain and walked out, leaving the ballroom stunned in her wake. The same space that tried to humiliate her was now forced to remember her as the woman who refused to be erased. Her quiet strength had become the loudest voice in the room. This story isn't just about one gala or one insult. It reflects a reality that countless people face every day, rooms that question their worth, systems that mistake arrogance for power, and a world too ready to dismiss those who don't fit its narrow vision of belonging. Racism often hides in plain sight, disguised as a joke, a whisper, or a smirk. But its impact is lasting, and its cruelty undeniable. Amara's victory was not just hers. It was a reminder that respect is not negotiable. Not at $4. Not at 4 billion. Not ever. So the question remains, how many more rooms must be shattered before dignity no longer needs to prove itself? And when the laughter fades, will we choose to be silent like the crowd, or to stand on the side of justice?